Hey, Real Training Live members, it is time, guys. It is Wednesday afternoon. Real Training Live, guys. What's going on? Coming at you live. Coach James here. And we are going to get started today with the next episode of this incredible training program that you guys are choosing to participate in. So once again, just want to welcome you to the call. Want to get everything adjusted, make sure that we are live, excited, and ready to go. Hold on one moment here while we just refresh the screen. Make sure that we're live and moving forward, guys. So, hey, you know what? I just want to find out, what have you guys been working on? What have you guys been doing with what you have heard over the last several weeks of classes? We've talked about expireds. We've talked about improving our results through better communication, better rapport, learning to ask better questions. Guys, we have done so much together over the last probably month and a half. So I want to know. So why don't you do that? Tell me below in the comments section, what have you been working on? Where is your biggest area of improvement? And what do you still need help with? Because guys, that's why I'm here. That's why I show up every single week, is to give you everything. I mean, everything that you guys need to go big time in real estate. All right. That is my job. That is my goal. Number one, bring you the information. Number two, give you the motivation to take action on it. All right. As we know, knowledge is not power. Knowledge without being acted upon, guys, it's just knowledge, man. You guys know that. There's a lot of agents out there that have a lot of knowledge up here, but it never seems to work its way out through what they're doing, what they're saying. So, you know what? My goal for you is to make sure that you are doing something with what we talk about every single week. So, it is now about 5 minutes after 1 o'clock. As always, I know we tend to have a lot of you guys that roll in a little bit after 1 o'clock Eastern, so want to make sure you are on time. Want to make sure you're ready to go. Make sure that you're taking notes today. All right, we are going to dive into, you guessed it, for sale by owners, man. This is the second of the two biggest listing lead sources on the planet. We know this. Has the market changed in the last decade? Absolutely. Are FSBOs and expireds still viable sources for getting listings? Absolutely. So you need to be equipped to know how to make that happen, all right? So we spent the last couple of weeks working on expireds. As I mentioned, this is interactive. I want to see your comments down below. I want to see your questions. Let me know what you're doing with regard to expireds, okay? If you have some wins, you have some success stories that you want to share, fantastic. If you've got challenges, you got questions, you got issues that you're running into that you still need help with regard to expireds, I want to know about that too. All right. But today we shift gears a little bit. Okay. We're moving forward with for sale by owners. We started talking a little bit last week, if you remember, at the very end of the expireds part 2. We started talking about for sale by owners a little bit because I wanted you to understand that there are similarities, okay? There are things that FSBOs and expireds have in common. And there are also some major differences that we need to look at, all right? So once again, I am excited to bring you this information today, but I'm even more excited to watch what you are going to do with it. So here we go, guys. For sale by owners, let's take some notes. Let's write down some things that we're going to cover. So let's back up again a little bit to last week. Basics, okay? For sale by owners, we need to understand that by definition, there is a barrier between the for sale by owner and the real estate agent. Okay? By definition, right when you start off, you got to understand that for sale by owners have chosen to try to do your job. All right? So they have it in their mind that they don't need you. They have it in their mind that they don't want to work with agents. They don't want to pay a commission. They don't feel there's value. So they're coming from this place of resistance, all right? Now, as an agent, as a sales professional, you're coming from the position that, man, who do these guys think they are? Trying to sell their home on their own, trying to do their job, thinking they don't need me, thinking that I'm not worth the money that I'm going to be asking for in terms of my commission, right? So there's resistance on your part. There's this barrier that exists because of the fundamental difference between agents and FSBOs. So the key is, can we bridge the gap? Okay, can we come to resolution? Can we get into communication? Can we get into rapport so that you put yourself in the place of getting listings when they're ready to list the property? Because here's what we know, all right? Here's what we know, guys. The majority of for sale by owners do end up listing their home, okay? It's bottom line, all right? only a fraction, only a small percentage, it's like 6 to 8%, maybe 10% in a strong market, actually sell their home on their own. All right? So don't buy into the drunk monkey, the negative thinking, all this other stuff that can go on up here. Don't buy into that. That says, man, these people don't need my help. The market's too strong. Everybody's going to sell it on their own. That's not true. All right? It's not true, and you need to go into the objective of working FSBOs with the belief that you bring value and that you can get these guys to list with you. So we got to understand what we're up against. All right. The other thing I want to kind of share with you up front is the need for follow-up. All right. I don't know of another lead source that is going to require as much lead follow-up and as an intense of a lead follow-up as for sell by owners. Okay. In other words, you got to be prepared for 30 to 45 days, maybe 60 days in some cases, all right, of following up and maintaining intensity, maintaining enthusiasm, maintaining all the sales skills that are required to get these guys to go ahead and give you the appointment, all right? So we're going to look at all of this stuff today. Most likely some of this is going to carry into next week. All right, because what I need from you guys is I want questions, I want challenges, I want objections, I want some of the things that you are hearing, okay? I want to know what they are so we can talk about them, we can work through them, all right? So just as a quick review, with FSBOs, we're trying to accomplish one of three things when we talk about real estate, with a FSBO or with anybody else. We're trying to either A, set an appointment, B, develop a lead that we can pursue, or C, maybe put them into our people farm if we're never going to get any business from them, but we've had a good conversation. All right. And then the fourth option is we pitch them, man. We throw them in the trash and we don't worry about them. So one of three or four things is going to happen as you get on the phones, as you go to the door, as you engage with for sale by owners. Either getting the immediate appointment that is totally qualified and they are ready to talk about listing their home. Or we put them in our follow-up system, okay, and we stay in touch until the time is right. We put them in our people farm because we want to stay in touch, but we recognize that something has changed. They're no longer a viable lead, but we're going to hang on to them anyway. And we'll talk about that. And then lastly, in the garbage, man, and we're not worrying about them. And I want you to know something. Option number 4 is just as good as option number 1. Okay? Now, you might think, James, what are you talking about, man? Why would it be okay to throw them in the trash? Why is that as good as getting an appointment? Well, I'll tell you why. Because you know what? It allows you to remove the duds, remove the you've heard about separating the wheat from the chaff, right? We need to get those people out of the way so we can like laser beam focus on the good ones. I would much rather have you disqualify and throw away 5 or 6 out of 10 people, honestly, so that you can decide, hey, here are the 3, the 4, the 5 that I need to zero in on. And I need to put my energy into to convert into appointments. All right? So any one of those options is fine, guys. We're not attached to the outcome, right? We are not attached to the outcome. I don't care if this FSBO I'm about to call is an appointment, a lead, a database ad, or a garbage can. Okay? I mean, let's be real. I want the appointment. I want strong leads. But I'm not going to be discouraged. I'm not going to be frustrated. I'm not going to be, like down in the dumps because, here's another one that I got to throw away. I recognize, I accept, I understand the numbers game. That's what your thinking should be, all right? So how do we do that? How do we determine if they're a lead, if they're a, somebody that we want to close for an appointment, or if we're just going to throw them away or whatever? How do we do that? We got 4 things, remember, that we're looking for as a result of our conversation, okay? So I want you to be thinking about 4 things that I got to figure out based on my conversation with these for sale by owners. All right. Number 1 is I need to know motivation. I've got to know, does this person really need to sell their home? Do they need to sell? Do they need to move? Is it a very strong desire? All right. Motivation is king. All right. Let's write that down. Motivation is king. You need to know whether these people have to move or not, or if they're just, playing around. And quite frankly, their level of motivation is going to determine a lot of the other factors. Okay. So for example, factor number 2 is time frame. Okay. You need to know that. You need to know when they actually would like to move. But you know what? The truth is, if there's no real motivation, there's no real urgency. Any day will do. Any month will do. We're not in a rush. We're not in a hurry. We don't have to sell. We don't need to move. If we sell, great. If we don't, we're fine. We like our home, man. That's a lack of motivation, and you'll find people like that out there. Okay, but again, factor number 2 is time frame that we need to figure out. Factor number 3 that we need to look at is the issue of the other agent, just like with expireds. I hope this is actually sounding familiar to you. All right, I hope it sounded familiar. Mr. Vincent Flores, great to have you on board with us today. Thumbs up to you, man. Feel free to comment. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to say hey down below in the comment section, all right? So we're just kind of running through here again. For those of you that are watching this as a rebroadcast, you're tracking with me. For those of you that are jumping in at various points live, you got to make sure you go back and listen to the previous section of the message today of the episode, all right? But again, we're looking at the 4 standards for how we are going to determine if we close for an appointment, we put them in our follow-up system, we put them in our database, or we throw them away. Okay? Motivation, time frame, issue of the other agent. Is there somebody else they are already loyal to? Is there somebody else they're already connected to? Is there somebody that they're absolutely going to work with? In which case, you move on. All right? We're on to the next. And then finally, number 4 is price reasonability. Again, a function of motivation. Guys, if someone needs to sell their home, if they have a definite desire to make a move, are they going to be more reasonable on price, yes or no? Yes or no, guys? We know the answer, right? Yes, they are going to be more reasonable on price because they need to move. For the people that really don't care if they sell, they're testing the market. They're just checking it out to see if they can get their price. They're a conditional seller, okay? That means they're not going to be that flexible or that motivated on their price. And yes, Vincent, great question. Is this the case with expireds as well? Absolutely, man. Absolutely, it is the case. Meaning the same 4 things apply, all right? We're looking to do one of 4 things with an expired, just like with a for sale by owner. We're either going to close them, put them in our lead follow-up system, keep them as a part of our database, our people farm, right? To try to get future referrals from, or we're going to throw them in the trash, okay? Same thing with FSBOs, and we use the same 4 standards. We're kind of looking for the same 4 things. Motivation, time frame, price reasonability, and the other agent. Is there another agent? Those are the 4 things that we need to figure out. We got to discover this as a result of our conversation. Because once those 4 things are in place, it is time to go, man. It is time to get there and present and try to get a listing contract signed. All right? And just like we talked about, guys, if you remember this from, I think it was last week, maybe it was the week before, in the first part of the expireds, we talked about the difference between somebody that you want to go get an appointment with right now and a lead. The only one of those factors that's different is the time frame. Okay? A lead still has to have a lot of motivation. A strong lead still needs to be willing to be reasonable on their price. A strong lead still needs to be open to hiring you. Okay? Otherwise, they're not a good lead. Okay? So the only difference is time frame. Maybe they just have to wait for some reason. Maybe they're just not ready yet. Maybe there's some other issue that's getting in the way of them giving you the appointment today, so we follow up with them. All right? But yes, we are looking for the same 4 things. And so now, to figure that out, we have our our script, right? We have our script. We have our pre-planned series of questions that we are going to go through. Laura Lenz, great to have you on board as always. I'm glad you can be here with us on Wednesday. Be sure you go back if you get a chance and listen to the first 5 or 10 minutes of the call today, of the episode, where we just kind of do a little recap and kind of get your thinking in the right place for sale by owners, all right? But, and please, feel free, guys, questions, comments, anything like that that I can do to help to make this experience better and to help you get out there and list more property. That's why we're here. All right? So, script. Guys, we have a script which is nothing more than a pre-planned list of questions that we are going to ask. Okay? That's all a script is. It's a guideline to a conversation that we need to have. And in that conversation, we are going to ask questions that help us determine those 4 factors that we just talked about. Motivation, time frame, price reasonability, and whether or not there's another agent that has already basically got the job. Okay? Those are the 4 things we need to know. All right? So the questions from the script are designed to figure that out. All right? So basically, here's the thing. All right? As we get into the conversation with FSBOs, we need to practice something that we talked about with expireds, which is what I call disclosure. Okay? Disclosure is just saying what is on your mind. Okay? In other words, if you're thinking up here, so let me give you an example. Up here in your mind, you're thinking, oh man, these guys have probably been called by every agent in the marketplace. Which, by the way, is not true. But that's what we think, right? That's what our little drunk monkey, our little, negative voice that sometimes goes on up here is telling us, man, they've probably been called by everybody. Or, you know what, they're frustrated, they hate agents, they don't want to talk to you. They're going to be thinking all you want to do is list their property, so they're not going to talk to you. All right? This is what we have going on up here, so we need to take some of that. And we need to disclose that, all right, when we get them on the phone. So it's ring, ring, hello, hey, this is James calling from XYZ Realty. Look, I am sure that you have probably gotten a lot of phone calls. You've probably been gotten contacted by a lot of agents. Am I right? And look, I'm just calling today about your property there on Banana Street, and I want you to know, I understand you're trying to sell the property on your own. I respect what you're doing. Okay, but I did have just a few quick questions because I like to keep up with what's going on in the area. Do you have a minute for me? Okay, that's an example of what we call disclosure. That is an example of you taking what is going on up here, okay, and putting it into words and saying, look, I'm sure you've probably gotten contacted by a lot of agents. Am I right? And you know what? I understand. I know you're trying to sell it on your own. I respect that. That's fine. But I did have a few questions for you. Do you have a minute for me? Okay, so what we're trying to do, remember what I said before, there's friction. Remember we talked about that? There's a barrier, there's resistance between the FSBO and the agent because of where each person's coming from. Okay? The FSBO is coming from, I don't need their help. I don't want to pay a commission. It's not worth the money. I can do this on my own. Anybody can sell a house. And the agent is coming from the place of, well, who do they think they are trying to do my job? I'm worth every penny. I bring so much value to the table. They have no idea what they're doing. And now we're butting heads, right? Because we're coming from two different places. So the wall has to come down. Communication has to be opened up. So we use disclosure, we use validation, we use all these techniques to lower the resistance, to get the walls down so they'll talk to you, okay? Have you guys ever had that experience? And if you have, feel free, share with me, comment, okay? But have you ever had the experience where you've just validated what somebody else has said to you, and all of a sudden you just felt the resistance go away. You just felt the tension melt, and all of a sudden they're willing to talk to you. Have you guys had that happen? I'm hoping you have. I know I used to have that all the time. I know lots of agents have shared with me that when they apply these types of things, that's what happens. The people are willing to talk. Thank you, Vincent. Appreciate that. I had a feeling you might have experienced that. Laura, I'm sure for you too. And for all the rest of you guys watching this as a rebroadcast, just trust me, it works. All right? So ring, ring. Hello. Hey, this is James from XYZ Realty. And I understand you have probably been contacted by a lot of agents already. Am I right? Oh my gosh, yeah, you're like the 15th agent that's been calling me. Every call I get is from an agent. You know what? That doesn't surprise me at all. But look, the reality is I know you're trying to sell on your own. I respect that. But I did have just a few quick questions for you, right? Because I'd like to keep up with what's going on in the marketplace. Do you just have a minute or so for me? A couple minutes for me. Okay? What we're hoping then at that point is, yeah, okay, what do you want to know? Okay, yeah, but we're not listing the property. No, I totally get that. The good news is that's not why I'm calling today. I respect what you're doing, but I just got to find out, first of all, is the home still available, or did you guys actually get that sold? Okay, first question is, we need to know, is the home for sale still available, or is it sold? Do they have it under contract? Okay, or do they think they have it under contract? So often, a for sale by owner, I just had a call this morning. I had a call with this lady down in Atlanta, and she and one of her team members went out on a FSBO appointment last night, okay? And the guy was so typical of everything we talk about, right? He felt like he knew how to do it on his own. He didn't need their help. He had somebody that was kind of, circling around, ready to make an offer. So, it's kind of like, I'm getting showings. Somebody told me they're going to come back and write me an offer. I don't need you. Right? That's what they think. And I said to them, you know what? That's their script. That's their script. That's their story. Very typical. I said, you just have to outlast them. right? And you know what? At the end of the day, if this offer does come together, if this buyer is real, and if they do actually buy the home, so what? You move on to the next. There's lots of FSBOs out there. But I said, you got to stay in touch. You got to keep checking back, right? And it's the same thing you guys are going to have to do. So here's the deal. We get them into rapport. We try to get them to open up to us. So we've said to them, hey, check it out. I understand what you're trying to do. Had a few questions for you. I need to find out, is the home still available or do you get it sold? And they say to you, no, it's still available. We got a bunch of people that have come to see the home. We got people talking to their loan officers. We're expecting an offer maybe this week. Good for you guys. You know what? I hope that works out for you. I'm just curious though. Once you get the home sold, are you guys staying here locally? Excuse me. Staying here locally, you're looking to move out of the area? What are you hoping to do? Okay. For the record, I wouldn't recommend purposely working a voice crack into the script. Okay, that doesn't really do anything. That was just my little faux pas there. So don't mimic. We talk about mirroring and matching and mimicking. Hey, forget the voice crack, okay? Anyway, so we got to find out motivation and then time frame and all these other things we talked about. So check it out. When you get the home sold, Mr. FSBO, Mrs. FSBO, are you guys staying here locally? You're looking to move out of the area? What are you guys hoping to do? Remember, same thing with expireds. We talked about curiosity. We talked about genuineness. We talked about having a real interest in them. So important with for sale buyers as well. Okay, frankly, it's important with everybody that we come across with a genuineness, with a sincerity, with a curiosity. Okay, it cannot be interrogative. It cannot be nosy and intrusive. It's coming from the place of, hey, tell me more about you. Tell me more about your situation. Okay? So once you get the home sold, are you guys staying here locally? You're looking to move out of the area? What are you guys hoping to do? So they answer you. Excuse me. They might say, we're getting a bigger house, smaller house. We're moving to Florida. We're moving to Canada. Or, who knows what they're doing, right? But let's assume they answer you. Then the next question is, man, that's fantastic. You're digging in, right? You're building a little rapport. Is that you got family down there? Is that a job transfer? I mean, what's got you guys moving to Florida? Or, wow, you're looking to get something a little bit bigger. So it sounds like maybe you've got a growing family. You're looking to get a home office set up. What have you guys got going on? Again, open-ended questions with an upswing. Okay, again, the upswing in the tonality conveys curiosity. It's how we form a question in the language that we use, okay? We use an upswing. That tells the person that we're asking out of curiosity. We're asking a question. We're not trying to nail down the facts. We're not trying to interrogate them, okay? So you got to be aware of the words being, as we said, remember last week, the week before? The words are like 7%, okay, guys? Don't get so hung up on the words that you use. Focus more on the delivery, the enthusiasm, modulating your tone a little bit, okay? Speeding up sometimes when you're trying to convey a little bit of excitement and energy, and maybe slowing down when you really need to emphasize a point with them, okay? When you're going for the close and you're just laying it out there, and you're trying to make sure they get the fact that you want to help, that you're sincere, it's okay at that point to say, guys, listen, I know I can help you. I know I can get your home sold. I know I can get you the most amount of money possible. All I'm asking for is a chance. Okay? All I'm asking for is maybe 20 to 30 minutes of your time. Excuse me. And, can we meet later today? Would tomorrow be better? So you see what I'm saying? Like, again, rate of speech, tonality, volume, these are the factors that really communicate meaning to people. Okay, so let's move on through the script. So we've asked them, what's got you getting the bigger house, the smaller house? What's got you going to Canada or Florida? Hey, so in a perfect world, Mr. FSBO, Mrs. FSBO, perfect world, if you guys could choose the date, how soon would you guys like to be in Florida? I mean, be honest, how soon? Oh, we'd like to be there next week. Oh, we'd like to be there, right after the first of the year. Or, you know what, we're not in any hurry. We don't have to be there at any certain time. There's no rush. Whenever we get the home sold. Okay? Now, guys, you and I both know a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, that's what we call a smoke screen. That's a bluff. Okay, that's them trying to throw you off and make you think that there's no motivation here. There's no urgency. You can't get any leverage on me. I don't need you. I would like to move. Excuse me, guys. But I don't have to move. I don't need to be there. There's no vulnerability here that you, as the stinking rotten salesperson, are going to be able to take advantage of. See, that, again, might be what's going on in the FSBO's mind, is they're not giving anything away. So, you know what? We acknowledge that. We roll with that. We can always circle back to that later, right? But you're saying, look, in a perfect world, if you guys could pick the date, how soon would you like to be in Florida? How soon would you like to be in that bigger house? I mean, be honest, okay? Now, we have to keep rolling through the script, okay? We've got to keep moving things forward. So, you might want to, and there's lots of questions you could ask. I'm not suggesting you have to ask, hey, how long have you been trying to sell the home on your own? You could ask that. It's actually in my FSBO script. But that is one of those questions that is really, it can tell you a little bit about motivation. Because if they say to you, well, we've been trying on and off for the last 7 months or so, and immediately that might be a red flag. Okay? How many of you guys have ever had that experience where you've called a FSBO and basically they've told you they've been trying forever to sell the house, and, that's immediately tells you, lack of motivation here. You guys have probably experienced that before. If you have, feel free to say yes, give me a thumbs up. I'm just looking over here, make sure I haven't missed any comments on the monitor from you guys. But that is a question that a lot of agents like to ask because they're just trying to find out, okay, what is the urgency with these people? If they say to you, hey, you know what, we just put the sign up last week. We just got the ad on Zillow. We just got the ad on the website last week. At that point, you know that you're probably going to have a little bit more follow-up to do, okay? So that's one of the questions you may choose to leave in the script, all right? But again, as we're moving through here, you want to start to work toward the price. So guys, look, I noticed in your ad that you guys were asking $319 for the property. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I'm just wondering, if, let's say somebody came along tomorrow and they just fell in love with your house. This was the perfect house for them. They wanted to write you an offer. Do you guys have any flexibility there, or are you really just dead set on getting your $319? Okay, again, that is one of the factors we're looking for. Remember, motivation, time frame, price flexibility or reasonability, and then the other agent, which we're getting to, okay? So one of the ways that you can try to get a little idea from them on price is let them know that you know what they're asking. If you don't know what they're asking for the property, ask them. Hey guys, I noticed I couldn't find it anywhere. Maybe you got it on a different website. How much you guys asking for the property? Okay? And then when they tell you, say, great, I'm going to write that down. I am just curious though. Let's say somebody came along and they looked at your house and they just absolutely fell in love with it. They were like, this is the house for us. We're going to write you an offer. Do you guys have a little room there, a little flexibility in that price, or are you dead set on getting the $319? Okay? Again, we're just making a note as they give us their answers. Okay? Now, Mr. and Mrs. FSBO, the truth is I talk to a lot of people, just like you, who are trying to sell their home on their own. And I've really noticed there's a couple things everybody seems to have in common. First of all, pretty much everybody tells me they're trying to sell it on their own because they're looking to net as much money as possible. Is that the case with you guys? Guys, what is the answer to that question every time? The answer is a big fat what? Yes, of course. This is one of those setup questions because we already know the answer. We're asking the question because we're trying to create momentum for the second question, which is, you know what? Look, the other thing I've noticed is that most people have given themselves a time frame. I had somebody tell me just the other day they're going to try it for a couple more weeks. I had another guy tell me last week he's going to try it for a month or so. So really, I'm just curious, how much more time do you think you guys might take before you would be open to talking with me about selling your home for you? Okay? Now again, you don't have to use the exact same words, guys, but here's what we're looking for. We're looking to try to get a feel for what their thought process is on timing. Because right away, if they say to you, yeah, we're probably going to give it a few more weeks. If we don't have it sold, if we don't have somebody writing us an offer in a few weeks, we will probably start talking to agents because we do want to get this thing sold. Man, that is great. That is perfect. That's exactly what we want to hear. A lot of times, though, they're going to say, you know what, haven't really thought about that. Haven't given that any thought at all. Okay, that's fair enough. Let me just ask you, here we are, end of November. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, that we get into the new year. We're into January, and you don't have any hot buyers on the horizon. At that point, honestly, could you see yourself being willing to sit down and talk with me, or do you think you're going to go right on through the whole month of January? Okay? You notice how, guys, one of the things I want you to notice that we're doing is we're continuing to what I call peel the onion. All right, every time we get an answer, we're trying to go a little deeper. We're asking the next question. We're trying to find out, what did they mean by that? Can you clarify? This is all part of getting into their thought process so that we can set them up to close. Because also, remember, guys, we have to know, is there flexibility on price? Is there enough motivation to really go after these people? Every time you ask a question, what I want you to picture is we're peeling the onion and we're looking to make sure that we got a real gem here that we actually want to go meet with or we want to follow up with. All right? So hopefully, guys, this is making sense, all right? If you're liking it, if it's making sense, if you can picture the process, all right, of working with these FSBOs, again, give me the thumbs up. Give me a like, give me a wow, give me something to let me know. Comments below, questions. Let me know that this is making sense, okay? Appreciate that, guys. All right, so let's go back to the script for a moment, all right? Basically, what we've said is, look it, I talk to a lot of people like you, all right? I hear pretty much two things all the time. Number one, I hear people telling me that they're trying this approach because they want to put as much money in their pocket as possible. Now, is that fair to assume that's the case with you as well? Notice what I didn't ask, okay? Did I use the word commission in that question? Did I say to them, most people tell me they're trying to sell it on their own because they want to save the commission? I didn't say that. Because, see, the truth is, we can't do anything about the commission. If we're going to list their property, if they're going to hire us, they are going to pay a commission, right or wrong. Absolutely. Okay? So what we're doing is we're shifting the focus from commission to net. All right? So, for example, we'll talk about this in a little bit when we get into objections. But when they say to you, we don't want to pay a commission, we're selling it on our own because we want to, we don't want to pay a commission, we want to keep the money or whatever, you need to immediately recognize that you've got to shift the conversation to net. All right, and we'll talk about that in more detail when we get into the objection handling portion. But I just want to mention that I didn't ask them, or I didn't say to them, hey, most people tell me they're trying it on their own because they want to save the commission. Okay? So then the second part of that question was, hey, look, if you're also, the other thing I hear most often is that people have given themselves a time frame, as to how long they're going to try it on their own, right? Before they'd be open to listing it. I had a guy tell me just yesterday, he's going to try it for a couple more weeks. I had a guy tell me last week he's going to give it about another month or so. So I'm just curious, what are you guys thinking in terms of how much longer you might try this on your own? I don't know what they're going to say, but what I do know is that's going to give me a little more insight into their thinking, their commitment level, their motivation. Okay? So then we move into the last phase, the 4 things. Remember that we talked about? Other agent. Okay? So, you know what, guys, just a couple more questions. I really appreciate you talking with me today. I'm just wondering, if you did decide that you wanted to get professional representation, if you did decide you wanted to list the property, do you guys already have an agent that you are committed to using? Okay? Do you guys happen to have an agent that you are 100% sure you will give the business to? Okay? Now, you notice the certainty that I'm building into my question, the language that I'm using. I'm not saying, hey, if you guys did decide to list the property, do you have somebody in mind that you might go with? Okay? I'm being very specific. Do you have an agent that you are absolutely certain you would hire? Okay? Do you know for sure who you would list with? Do you already have somebody picked out that you're committed to and loyal to? Okay? Now, if they say no, we probably interview several agents. Okay. The truth is I'd love to apply for the job. And can I ask you, as of right now, I'm just curious, what exactly would stop you from meeting with me to talk about listing your property? What would keep you from doing that? Now, here's the deal. You and I both know when I ask a question like that, I am asking for what? What am I asking for? I'm asking for the objection. I know they're going to give me an objection. I'm just begging for the objection because I want to take the objection they give me, I want to address it, and I want to spin it into my first close. Okay? So I'm good with that. I'm totally fine. I'm expecting them to tell me that they don't want to hire me, they don't want to list with me right now because they want to probably save the commission is what they're going to say. They don't want to spend the money. That's most always what they're going to say to you. All right? So we now need to be ready for that. If you're going to ask a question like that, you absolutely need to be ready for how you're going to handle it. All right? So that's really one of the last questions on the script. Okay? Is do you happen to have an agent that you're absolutely committed to using? And I'm just curious, if you were to decide to list your property, do you already have an agent you're going with? But then what would stop you? I'm just curious, like, what would stop you from hiring me today? Is there any reason why you wouldn't be willing to meet with me today? Well, like I said, we want to give it a few more weeks. We think we can get it sold on our own. We really don't want to pay the commission. We've got this buyer over here that we think is going to make us an offer. Hey, if they got somebody they think is going to make him an offer, Mr. and Mrs. FSBO, tell you what, let me ask you, how would you like to have the best of both worlds? Well, what do you mean? Well, best of both worlds means you get the benefit of having a professional like myself out there every single day looking for buyers for your property, marketing your home to the maximum number of available buyers, representing you when we do get an offer, and at the same time, you get the right to continue trying to sell it to this particular buyer for the next couple of weeks, if that's what you want, and you don't owe me anything. Could we set up a time to talk about how that might work? Okay, so if they say that to you, you ask them, hey, what would keep you from listing your home with me today? What would keep you from meeting with me today? And they say to you, well, because like I said, we've got this buyer, we've got these couple of people that really seem like they're interested, and we want to give them a chance. We want to see if we can sell it on our own to them. No problem. Let me ask you though, how would you like to have the best of both worlds? Okay, and you got to emphasize the word both. You notice how, again, delivery, certain words that we emphasize, certain places we speed things up or we slow it down, modulate our tone. This is all part of the communication. Okay, so how would you like to have the best of both worlds? Well, what do you mean? And that's where you kind of bait them a little bit with the idea that they get you and they get the ability, if they want to keep trying to sell it to this buyer without owing you anything. Hey, could we set up a time to talk about how that might look? No obligation. I just want to share with you what it looks like, tell you about your options, answer your questions. And you know what? If it makes sense, great, we work together. If you still think you'd want to keep trying it on your own without my assistance, that's okay too. No big deal. Okay? You see how easy it is in some cases, guys, to actually get an appointment. Okay? Of course, you got to go back and pre-qualify. You got to go through and make sure that they really are ready to go and, talk a little bit more about price. But the point is, I want you to see how easy it can be to segue into a close. Okay? When you ask a question like, hey, I'm just curious, at this point, what would actually stop you from hiring me? Is there any reason why we couldn't get together and talk about listing your home? Okay? So you got to be ready for that, guys. You got to be ready to ask that question. And then once they give you the objection, you answer it and you segue into your close. Okay? So basically, there's other questions you could ask if you want. What methods are you using to market the home? Tell me a little bit about your home. Give me a few key things about your home that you're most excited about. You can do that if you want. You can get them talking about the house if you feel you need to kind of break some tension. But you know what? Why not just get in there, ask for what we need. We need to know motivation. What's so important about selling the property? Where are you guys going to be moving to once you get the home sold? What's exciting about that? How soon, in a perfect world, if you could pick the date, how soon do you want to be there? Price flexibility. Guys, I noticed you're asking $299, $419, $152, whatever their price is. I noticed that's what you're asking. If somebody came along tomorrow and offered you to buy your house and they made you a great offer, do you have some flexibility or are you dead set? And then lastly is we want to try to get a little bit of time frame for when they might be thinking about listing, and do they have somebody in mind that they already are committed to using? And then at the end of that, if you like what you've heard, Guys, if there's motivation, if the timing seems reasonable, if they've got a little flexibility in their price and they seem, willing to negotiate, and they don't have an agent they're committed to, guys, ding, 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 ding. It's green light, man. It's go for it. And you set up the close by asking the question, hey, Mr. Mrs. Seller, I got to ask you, I appreciate you talking with me today, but I got to ask you, at this point, what would stop you? What would keep you from hiring me today for the job of selling your home? What would keep you? Is there any reason why we couldn't sit down today and talk about what it would take to hire me? Okay, there's so many ways to ask it, but what I'm saying is get the objection. No, we don't want to pay a commission. We're not ready yet. Whatever they're going to say. Tell you what, for those of you guys that are calling for sell by owners, okay? For those, and I know a lot of you are watching live. I know a bunch of you are going to be watching this as a rebroadcast who work FSBOs. Write down below in the comments, what are the main objections you get? What are the main things that people tell you when you're working for sell by owners as to why they don't want to meet with you? All right, let's start digging into these right now. So I'm going to just, hold on here, guys. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, make sure I can see the comments as you guys feed them to me, all right? But here's the thing. This is what I'm trying to get across. This does not have to be complicated. This can be straightforward. Ask your questions. Bring down their walls, okay? Bring down their defenses. Get them to open up and talk with you, okay? And then find out the answers to those questions. Okay, great. Perfect, Vincent. I'll meet you if you have a buyer. Okay, fantastic. The truth is, Mr. FSBO, right now, I don't know that I have a buyer for your property. But it sounds like what you're saying is if I find you a buyer, you'll be willing to pay me a commission. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. Now, we're hoping they say yes. Okay. We're hoping they say, yeah, we're willing to cooperate with you. Fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and make a note of that right here. So really, the truth is, all we need to do is figure out how we make up that extra little bit of commission and make sure that money goes in your pocket. And it sounds like you might be open to working with me. Is that fair to assume? Okay. So again, if they say that, I'll meet you if you have a buyer. Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you for telling me. Truth is, right now, I don't know that I have a buyer for your property, but it sounds like if I could find you a buyer that was willing to write you a good offer, you'd be willing to compensate me. Is that right? So we got to get clear on that, okay? We want to make sure that we're on the same page, that that's what they're telling us. And if that is the case, then we say, okay, great. So, the truth is, we only have a little bit of gap to make up there in terms of the commission. So why don't we do this? Could we at least sit down and talk about that? Okay? The other option is go for the preview. Okay, great. You know what? I am going to make a note of that right now. I don't know, honestly, that I have a buyer for your property today, but what I'd like to do is just set up a time to take a look at the home. I'd like to get a little bit more of an idea of what this property has to offer so that I can speak intelligently when I do get out there talking to potential buyers. As long as I promise not to try to pressure you for a listing, would you at least be willing to let me preview the property and shake your hand? Okay, so sometimes that may be what you have to go for. Step one is just get in front of them. Get to see the property, bring them a little information, shake their hand, build some rapport so that as you follow up, you've got a little more leverage. Okay? So don't be thrown off by this whole thing about, bring me a buyer. Because so often that's what the FSBOs will say to you. Hey, bring me a buyer. You know what? Truth is, I would love to bring you a buyer. It sounds like if I could find somebody, you'd be willing to compensate me. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. Repeat the smart part. I'm not sure. Smart part. Did I say something smart? I'm not sure what that means, Vincent. Can you repeat the smart part? I'm just trying to think here as I'm talking of what that might be. Or maybe that's a typo. I don't know. Maybe that's one of the lovely autocorrects from our phones if you are watching me on your device today as opposed to your computer. But so bring me a buyer, very common, all right? We want to address it head on. Yeah, you know what? Obviously, if I find somebody, if I think I have somebody that would like to see the property, I'll be sure to bring them by. Intelligent after I've previewed the home. Okay, so after you've previewed the home, in other words, what you do from there is you are going to set them up for future follow-up, and you could close them to come back and do a presentation. Okay, so you've got somebody, they tell you, look, I'm only gonna meet with you if you have a buyer. I don't want to list it. I don't want you coming over here pitching me. If you've got a buyer, let me know you can see the home. Perfect. I appreciate that. Truth is, as a service to any buyers I do work with, I've committed to them that I will have personally previewed any properties before I show it to them. You can understand that. So look it. As long as I promise not to pressure you or harass you about listing with me, would you at least be willing to let me see the home and get to meet you face to face? Hopefully they say yes. So now we're in the door, okay? We brought some information about the market, maybe a little bit of information about ourselves. We're looking at the home, we're taking notes, we're asking questions. If you're in rapport with them, okay? If you've got good rapport at the preview, you could still go back and close. And you could say, look, you made a point to tell me the other day on the phone that you really did not want to even talk about listing the property right now. You only wanted me to contact you if I had a buyer. Can I just ask you why? What is it in your mind? What do you see as the disadvantage of hiring me to represent you? Okay, so again, we're asking for the objection. It's like, tell me why. Give me your best. What is it you think is going to happen if you hire me? You know, Mr. and Mrs. FSBO, you know and I know you don't owe me a penny until I provide you with an offer that makes sense. So really, the truth is, I'm taking all the risk because I only get paid if I can deliver. But all I'm asking for is, you go ahead and give me the green light. Now, sometimes they will, again, when they say to you, if you bring me a buyer, I'll pay you 2%, I'll pay you 2.5%, whatever. You know what, man, I really appreciate that. Would you be willing by any chance to put that in writing? Okay, this is another approach that I have a lot of agents that use, and it's a segue into the listing. Because guys, what is a listing agreement? A listing agreement is an agreement that the seller says, I will pay you X percentage of the price you give me as long as I'm willing to accept your offer. Okay? I'm going to give you X percentage of that. 5%, 6%, 7%, whatever it is. But it's only when you bring the offer. That's what a listing agreement is. Listing agreement does not offer any money up front. A listing agreement does not encumber them in any way. It just says, I will agree to pay you a percentage if you bring me an offer that I choose to accept. So if they tell you, hey, bring me a buyer and I'll pay you 2%, you know what, Mr. Smith, Mr. FSBO, Mr. Expired, whatever, I appreciate that. Would you be willing to put that in writing? Okay? It's a way to segue into a listing presentation. But again, excuse me, if we're going with the two-step, the preview and then the listing appointment approach, if that's the direction you want to go, that's okay. Get the preview. Let them know you're not coming over to do a pitch. You're not coming to beat them up about listing. You want to look at the home. You want to get to meet them face to face. You want to bring them a little information. Once you're there, though, at the end, you can go back and revisit that. And you can say to them, look, man, I got to be honest. You made a point to tell me the other day that you just didn't want to list it. You only wanted to let me in the door if I was coming to preview or bring you a buyer. And I'm just curious, why is that? A good client of mine will sometimes ask a FSBO, so why is it you're not willing to list? Do you just hate agents? I mean, you can break it up with a little bit of humor. Guys, there's nothing wrong with kind of lightening the mood a little bit, breaking the tension, man, by asking a question like that. Okay? So there are lots of ways to come back around to asking for the appointment. But you're only going to get there if you can get past the objection. So you've got to draw it out, man. You got to ask for it. Tell me why you're not willing to list. What is stopping you? What are you worried about? What's the worst that can happen? If you were to list your home with me today, what is the biggest fear that you might have that would happen as a result of that? Okay? There's lots of ways to ask it, but what I'm saying to you right now as you're watching this, go for it. Don't be afraid of the objection. Draw it out so that it gives you a chance to close. Okay? It gives you a chance to go back and say, look, here's all I'm asking for. Give me 20 minutes. Give me 30 minutes to review my marketing plan, to go over where the market is at, to answer your questions. And hey, if it makes sense, you put me to work. If you still think that you're going to be better off trying to sell it on your own, That's okay too. No big deal. Okay? So don't be afraid to ask for the objection, guys. So what else are you hearing? I know there's this whole thing about bring me a buyer and, I'm not willing to list right now. That's fine. If you can get in the door as a preview, I'm saying go for it, man. Get in the door and preview and meet them and then ask them on the back end why they wouldn't be willing to list with you, all right? But while I'm sort of waiting or looking to see what other objections you guys might have or comments that you might be hearing, I want to kind of jump forward just a little and I want to talk about the follow-up, okay? Because in most cases, it doesn't matter how great your responses are. It doesn't matter how much energy you have. It doesn't matter, just how perfectly you deliver these things. Most of the time, your appointments are only going to come as a result of what? What is it, guys? You know what I know it. Lead, follow up. Those three magic words. Lead, follow up. Okay? The majority of your appointments, and I'm talking about the vast majority of your appointments, are going to come from lead follow up. Okay? So what does that mean for you? What that means is you better have a darn good follow-up system. Okay, guys? You need to have an airtight, rock-solid follow-up system. Okay? Now, we've talked about follow-up a little bit in the past. We're going to have a future class on lead follow-up. But my point is, you might want to create what we call a for sale by owner help package. It's a very common item, very easy to put together. If I can remember, in fact, if one of you guys want to go ahead and make a comment down below, let me know. I would be happy to post an example of a follow-up package that you can customize for yourself, okay? Now, you can make that package 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 pages long if you want to. But here's what I'm going to say. Don't give it to them all at once. Okay, don't show up at the preview and say, hey, here's my 12-page FSBO help package. See, why would you give it all away at once? Give them 2 or 3 pages of it, okay? And then in the course of your continued follow-up over the next several weeks, you give them another couple pages of it. And then you give them a couple more pages. I mean, you could literally create a 4 to 5 stage follow-up item by taking this big 12 to 15 page packet and breaking it up. Break it up into segments, okay? So examples of things that are in there, showing tips, safety reminders, things to be looking for if they happen to get a buyer, okay? A customizable feature sheet format or whatever. There's so many things you could put into a FSBO help package that really becomes a glorified follow-up tool, okay? So you should probably work on putting one together. I'm going to go ahead and put one in here as just an example for you guys to take, and some of you may have it if you've been working with me as a coaching client, okay? Other things would also include previous success stories, okay? So if you have for sale by owners that you have listed and sold in the past, you need to get testimonials from those guys, all right? Preferably in a video format, but you know what? If it's written format, that's okay too. You can put that on a postcard. There's various ways to deliver that to them, but you want testimonials, if possible, to be a part of your follow-up. There's a guy, some of you may know, or some of you may have heard of him. His name is Steve Futch. Okay, he is an agent in Shreveport, Louisiana. He's just a fantastic agent. He does a lot of business with for sale by owners. Okay, and one of the things that I love about Steve's approach is it is so simple. Okay, so for example, now he does a lot of follow-up at the door, just so you guys know. Okay, he goes out and he sees these people in person on a regular basis as part of his follow-up. But one of the things he will bring a FSBO that he's following up with is a copy of his schedule. He just brings him a copy of his schedule. And he's like, hey, I just want to stop by and find out if anything's changed since we spoke last. And I actually thought you might be interested to see how I spend my day. Okay? You notice here in my schedule, I've got 3 hours every single day devoted to one thing. And that is to find buyers for my sellers. How would you like to have a professional sales representative actively looking for buyers for you for 3 hours every single day? Okay, and he uses his schedule as a way to try to close for an appointment, okay, just to get information in front of him. A lot of times, he'll bring them a 90-day market update. Okay, just goes into the MLS, pulls off the report for the last 90 days. Here's everything that's listed. Here's everything that's sold. Here's some expireds. Gives it to them. Just thought you'd like to be updated on what's going on in the marketplace over the last 90 days. Okay, you see my point, guys? It can be so simple. what you keep in touch with them by. So create a system, okay? So step one, all right, here we go. Step one, you need to internalize the conversation with for sale by owners, okay? You got to know it up here. You got to know what you're going to say, as a part of those questions to get the information. Step two is you need to work on mastering the responses for the top 3 to 5 objections and comments that you're going to get. Bring me a buyer. We don't want to pay a commission. We're going to list it with a friend of ours if we did list it, which is another common one, okay? And there's a few others that you tend to hear on a regular basis when it comes to for sale by owners. Okay, so you know how to master the responses for those objections that you get. All right, step 3 is you need to develop or upgrade your follow-up system so that it's rock solid, it's airtight, it's systematic, and every single FSBO that you determine is a lead gets fed into the system, and they have the exact same thing. They have texts that they're getting from you, they have emails, there's personal visits, there's certain things you're using to follow up by mail. Okay, so you want to have a step-by-step follow-up system in place that every FSBO gets plugged into. Okay, and then remember, you're looking for opportunities to close all the time. You're always looking for opportunities to close them and get a listing presentation. Okay, so bottom line, guys, any other questions for today? It is now about, it's almost 2 o'clock, believe it or not. We've been kind of going at this for almost an hour. So next week, we're going to go into a little bit more detail on FSBOs, okay? So I want to cover some more objections. I want to go over things with you guys that you are having an issue with, so I need you to come to next week's episode with questions, okay? Objections, challenges, things about for sale by owners that you need help with. And we will go into a little bit more detail on some of the follow-up to get the appointment when you don't get it on day one, okay? So guys, check it out, man. Thumbs up to you for showing up today. I want you to use what we've talked about. I need you to grab 1 or 2 ideas, 1 or 2 things that you know are going to improve your approach to for sale by owners, and I want you to commit to using them, all right? And tell me about it, all right? Get into Prospecting 101. Tell me about it. Share with me some of the wins. Share with me some of the success stories. And remember, next week, RTL, Real Training Live, Wednesday, 1 o'clock. And we're going to continue the conversation on FSBOs. All right? So guys, check it out. Go have a great rest of the day. Make today count. We'll look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye for now.